Welcome to Dejobnik, your command post for clarity and perspective.
Good afternoon, I'm David Mencer, Israeli Government Spokesman. It's the 12th of March 2024. This is day 158 of the October 7th war. 158 excruciating days that our 134 hostages have been stolen from us by the Hamas rapist army. First, I will share an update on our casualties. IDF fatalities since the start of the October 7th massacre have unfortunately risen to 590. That is up one since yesterday. The people of Israel grieve with the family of Staff Sergeant Itai Chen, aged only 19 years old, from Netanya. New intelligence released today has come to light, and the IDF have released that Itai was abducted during the October 7th massacre and then killed by Hamas. His body is being held by Hamas. One can only imagine that this news has come as a crushing blow to his friends and family. We now understand that there are 100 live hostages. 34 bodies of Israelis are still cruelly being held. The IDF and all the people of Israel share in the unbearable grief of his family. We will continue to accompany them at this impossible time. Our hearts go out to all the families of those soldiers killed in action, as well as those who were murdered, taken hostage, and wounded. May their memories be a blessing. Next, in today's briefing, an important update from the United Nations. Firstly, Israel thanks the United States, the United Kingdom, Japan, France, for joining our call to convene the UN Security Council's special emergency discussion on the report of Hamas's sexual crimes during the October 7th massacre. Accompanied in New York by family members of the hostages, Israeli Jews and Arabs, yesterday the Israeli Foreign Minister called for the UN Security Council to designate Hamas as a terrorist organization. Minister Israel Katz said that Hamas must face the harshest sanctions in the same way as Al-Qaeda, the Taliban, and ISIS. Many countries have already heeded Israel's call. The United States, Australia, Canada, Japan, Paraguay, New Zealand, the United Kingdom, and the European Union have declared Hamas a terrorist organization. But if they are not, Hamas and their supporters will conclude that the UN is apathetic to Hamas's crimes against humanity, against Israeli civilians, and not least because the hostages it is abusing right now in Gaza. Now an update from COGAT, which coordinates and facilitates humanitarian aid entering Gaza. Yesterday, in full partnership and coordination with the IDF, 169 packages of humanitarian aid were airdropped over northern Gaza by the UAE, by Egypt, Jordan, France, Belgium, and the USA. In addition to that, 149 humanitarian aid trucks were inspected and transferred to Gaza. To those that continue to make the false accusation that Israel is in some ways stopping aid from entering Gaza, we simply say, since the start of this effort to uproot the Hamas rapist murderers from Gaza, more than 16,000 trucks have entered Gaza. Only 1.5% were not permitted. Most were recoordinated and entered later. COGAT is in constant contact with UN organizations. Again, a reminder that before this war, the UN themselves say they were only 70 food trucks entering Gaza every day. Yesterday, there were 149. The day before that, there were 225. So we're working on bold new ways with the United States and partner countries to prevent a humanitarian crisis, to get aid to civilians who need it the most, while making sure that Hamas cannot steal it, as they are doing. Israel transfers an unrestricted quantity of humanitarian aid following inspection. Israel supports the plan to build a temporary pier, as well as bringing additional aid as part of a maritime corridor from Cyprus to the Gaza Strip. There is no limit to the amount of aid that can enter Gaza. Next, I wanted to update you on a remarkable occurrence just yesterday. Our dedicated security forces, army and police, stopped a suicide bomber, a ticking time bomb. This would-be bomber left Jenin and was on his way to Tel Aviv. He intended to carry out an immediate attack on a bus in a restaurant to maximize death. He had a primed explosive device and a weapon on him. This attack was thwarted. You know, we here in Israel hear the protests in support of Hamas on the streets of London, of New York and other great cities around the world. They shout, "There is only one solution, intifada revolution." It rhymes, it's catchy, but it's also deadly. Bus bombings are synonymous with the intifada. Suicide bombings on buses targeting ordinary people are Hamas's gift to the world. As the Prime Minister made clear yesterday, we are the canaries in the coal mine. We will destroy Hamas. Next, moving to Ramadan. Just after this briefing, there is a special Ramadan discussion with some of the heads of the government departments here in Israel. So I'd encourage you to stay on the line to listen to that briefing, and you'll be able to put questions specifically on Ramadan to Israel's Ministry of Foreign Affairs, but also to the police and also to our own department here. Now, to Israel's 1.7 million Muslims, making up 18% of Israel's total population, to the families all around the country marking the month of Ramadan, we would like to wish them a Ramadan Kareem, as well as to our Muslim friends around the world, and especially to countries which have peace agreements. May this holy month be meaningful and bring peace, joy, and happiness to you and your loved ones. Israel maintains the freedom of worship for all religions everywhere and at every site, especially on the Temple Mount, but at mosques throughout our country. The sanctity of the Ramadan month will be kept this year, as it is every single year since this country was established in 1948. Now an update from Gaza. Yesterday we released details of our targeting of senior terrorist leaders in Gaza. We are still assessing the results of the strike. The final confirmation has yet to be received, and we will share it as soon as we have it. But here are the details we know so far. On Saturday night, IDF fighter jets struck an underground compound of senior Hamas leaders in the center of the Gaza Strip. Marwan Issa was the target, deputy only to the Hamas leader Mohammed Diaf, one of the planners of the October 7th massacre. Marwan Issa is central to the terror triangle in the Gaza Strip, with Mohammed Diaf and Yahya Sinwar. Also there was Aziz Abu Tamah, chief of Hamas's weaponry. They were together with other terrorists. We don't have final confirmation. This was an underground target, a terror tunnel target. For intelligence reasons, we cannot yet verify the results of this strike. Needless to say, every operation is planned over many hours, many days, often cancelled due to various factors. This operation was no different, but we had quality intelligence. It was precisely implemented by the Air Force to emphasize thorough intelligence showed that there were no Israeli hostages in the area. Know this: we will continue to pursue Hamas leaders and everyone involved in the October 7th massacre, not only in Gaza. The people of Israel are united. We are determined to end Hamas, but we are also patient. Targeting Hamas leaders is a central objective of this war. Moving to the north of Israel, the IDF is continuing to strengthen our readiness to war. We have more than 60,000 residents displaced in the north, fearing a Hezbollah October 7th style invasion. We will not let that happen. So we'll do whatever we can to restore security for them and bring them home. If we have to do it with military means, we will do so. If there is a diplomatic way to achieve it, fine. But ultimately, we will do it. Just this morning, an unprecedented 100 rockets were fired in a massive Hezbollah barrage Israeli communities were targeted. 70 rockets were fired at the Galilee. An hour later, 30 more at the Golan area. Hezbollah attempts to overwhelm our defensive Iron Dome system, but IDF jets destroyed 3 of the launchers used to fire 70 of those rockets. That brings us to the end of today's briefing. I will now take your questions in the chat. And just a reminder to stay on the line using this link for a 4 p.m. special briefing on arrangements for Ramadan. My colleagues in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the Israeli Police, the National Public Diplomacy Directorate will update you following the brief. Thank you. I'm happy to take your questions now.
We have a question from Jody Cohen at World is One News. With Hamas's call on Iran and its proxies to increase their attacks on Israel during Ramadan, does Israel expect to see an increase in the number of rockets fired from Lebanon into Israel? And are talks taking place or being planned to ensure that the war does not expand further on the Israel-Lebanon border?
Thank you, Jody, for your question. Just to be clear, as was elucidated yesterday in yesterday's briefing, the IDF is ready for an escalation. It does not want an escalation. We have no beef with the people of Lebanon, but we will not have Hezbollah aggressing our people on our northern border. It will not be allowed to pass. We are ready for an escalation. Just yesterday, we briefed you about the IDF strategy to be able to move equipment around, ready, even under fire, to arm our troops. We will defend our northern border. You should be very, very clear about that point. I can't, unfortunately, go into sensitive discussions about this matter, but needless to say, we are ready to defend our northern border, and it will be defended.
Thank you. We have another question from Melanie Littman of AP, and she asks, how is Israel inspecting the aid for the maritime route? Is Israel on the ground in Cyprus for inspections? And if so, which branches, such as Kogat, etc.? Thank you.
Thank you, Melanie, for that question. That is a question for Kogat, who will be able to share with you the details of how we are inspecting that aid. Once again, we are working in partnership with our partners around the world, with different parts of the international community, seeking to ensure that Palestinian people needing aid are able to get that aid, and most importantly, for it not to be looted by Hamas. We have experience in inspecting aid to make sure there are no dual use or subterfuge of weapons or any other things that can be used to support the Hamas rapist regime. But we are working closely with our partners to ensure that as much aid as is necessary is distributed inside Gaza.
Thank you. We have another question from Hannah Julian of the Jewish Press. Is UNRWA still in fact involved in the distribution of the humanitarian aid in Gaza? If so, why, given Israel's contention that the agency should be replaced?
Hannah, thank you for the question. We have made explicitly clear our issues with UNRWA. They are clear for all to see. The participation of UNRWA members with the Hamas massacre, the fact that there was a server farm, a computer server farm underneath UNRWA's headquarters. Almost impossible to imagine that UNRWA were not in collusion with Hamas. That said, we will do whatever is necessary on our own volition, without being prompted by anyone else in the world, to ensure that innocent civilians have access to the aid which they need to avoid any further distress to the innocent people in Gaza. We say this very, very clearly. There is no restriction to the amount of aid that can currently pass through our checkpoints. We have experience in vetting that aid. As I said, only 1.5% of aid trucks have been rejected, and even then they have been readmitted when changes have been made. So we want aid to go to the civilians that need it, and we will work with international agencies to ensure that happens.
Thank you. We have another question from Mark Weiss of Con Radio News. And he asks, can you update us on the orphans from Gaza? Did they reach Bethlehem safely?
Thank you for the question, Mark. I've seen those reports, but we don't have anything to add at the present time.
And the final question is from Eric of ABC News Australia. And he asks, how does Israel propose replacing UNRWA's aid distribution, education, and health services in Gaza? Can you give us more details on the IDF proposal to replace UNRWA?
In the briefing I've just given you, we have given some substantial details of the work that COGAT is doing. For further information, you should definitely reach out to COGAT. Needless to say, there is no restriction on the amount of aid going into Gaza. At the current time, there is excess capacity at our crossing points into Gaza. So if countries would like to send more aid, we will happily inspect it and make sure it goes in. The issue, unfortunately, remains with distribution, with looting from Hamas. Unfortunately, there are no hungry Hamas terrorists. They're stealing the aid for themselves. Their people go hungry. But this is not surprising, unfortunately, because Hamas have made clear that they're willing to sacrifice their own people in their dastardly struggle. The main objective of Hamas right now is to protect Hamas people themselves, not the Gazan people.
Thank you. There are no further questions.
Thank you for joining us. There'll be another briefing tomorrow at the same time, but please do stay on the line for a 4 p.m. Israeli time briefing, especially on Ramadan being dealt with by many, many different government departments here in Israel. Thank you very much.
Thanks for watching. Drop a comment below. Don't forget to like, share, and hit subscribe to stay updated with our latest content. Until next time, stay informed and inspired. This is Dejobnik signing off.